Welcome to the Seraphine podcast. I'm Seraphine Arocha, and we're back with Chelsea Atia. Hello.
Hi.
We are back in full fashion effect. We've been having so much fun doing these fashion episodes, and it feels like the pulse of fashion is alive and well. Mm-hmm. We're all out of our houses now. We can actually wear clothes.
I know. We're all so excited. We're ready to get out of our sweatpants and into some fabulous clothes.
I love it. And I love the fact that now our streaming services are on board with our fashion fetish. And Netflix has now launched a 5-part series called Halston. And it is about the iconic designer in the late 1960s and early 70s, Halston. So, oh my gosh, we started it today. She came over literally at 10:30 this morning, and we were in our cozy clothes with Chunk and Ace, my little doggies, and we kind of dug in a little bit beforehand watching the Amazon Prime Halston documentary to get a little bit more backstory. So when you were going into this, did you have any expectations, being that Ryan Murphy was behind it?
I knew it was going to be epic because of Ryan Murphy, but as far as Halston goes, I truly didn't have any expectations. I didn't know a lot about the designer. I told you I felt like I had a connection to Halston, but then I remembered the Fashion Institute that I attended had like an exhibit of his sketches and some of his work. So it rang a bell because I remembered that specifically. I didn't really know much about Halston, and I didn't do any research back then. But the documentary, that was such a great idea to watch the documentary first and then start watching the series, because we had a lot of like factual information. A lot of times when you go into a series, they make it more dramatic. And we had all the facts before through the documentary. So that was a great idea.
It was really easy to fill in the timeline because I do think with a lot of these, like the Versace one, some of the other ones I've watched about fashion designers, they give it almost feels like a ballad or a song as opposed to an album. And I think that when you have someone as iconic as Halston, who I really was amazed that he really set the bar for a few things. We'll get into it today, but he really set the tone for a designer having a relationship with a department store and translating like high-end fashion into affordable fashion.
He was so innovative in so many different ways and so ahead of his time, which is unfortunate because I think if it were happening in today's age or even like 5 or 10 years ago, he would have been like a household name even more so than he was.
And I think he would have, his reputation would have not been so tainted.
Right.
It was such an interesting time. So as we begin today, the actual mini-series gives you just barely a little glimpse that he's from Des Moines, a farm town boy from Des Moines. You know right off the bat that he is this innovative, interesting fashion designer. He's hanging out with a lot of the it people. The actual characters, he literally was a part of the original like Andy Warhol gang. And it was interesting that this miniseries did not really bring Andy Warhol in, but they did bring in all like Joel Schumacher. I mean, I was like, Joel Schumacher, the movie director. It was so crazy to see that he was in fashion to begin with. Then you have Elsa Peretti, who ended up going into jewelry and is like a total style icon. There is a little touch on the Warhol game with Pat Ast, who's like that bigger, larger than life woman who's so fabulous. So it's like a little sprinkling of it. And there's definitely a reference to, I think, his first lover. I'm trying to think what his name. Ed. That's it. And that was really, I wish they would have gone a little bit more into his relationship. Ed was,
because we're a sucker for love stories.
I know. And like
we figured this out already.
Totally. And like you can see the gentleness.
Yes.
He's this African-American, stunningly good-looking man. And you just see this connection between the two of them.
He sees Halston, or Roy, his real name, for who he really is and his potential. He doesn't see him as anything more or less. So he keeps him grounded, but he also lifts him up. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, and there's no opportunistic. And
Right.
you can see how many people around him.
I know.
The only person I feel like really genuinely doesn't look like they have an ulterior motive is his friendship with Liza.
Love this friendship, and it's starting to unfold more. It's episode 1, they meet, and she's the epitome of show business.
She really is.
Love Liza. But episode 1 is whenever he's sitting there in the bar, wherever they're at, and she's performing, and she's doing the dance for her name pronunciation. And then after that, they became fast friends. In episode 2, it's just evolving, and she's giving him confidence, and she's telling him she also sees him for who he really is and his potential. And I think that loyalty and that kind of genuine friendship anytime and any level of success is really rare. So you have to hold that really close.
I love the actress, Krista Rodriguez. She's a great choice for it. She's someone who was not really on my radar too much, but she really embodies the vivaciousness of Liza Minnelli. And you just want to be friends with her, but she doesn't overplay it.
No.
I read a few reviews this morning that was like trying to make it out that she's campy. I did not get that vibe at all.
I didn't either.
I also think in this time period of like the late 60s, early 70s, there was a nuanced way of presentation. Even your cadence in speaking.
Yes.
People had this idea of what it is like to speak in a tone that you're an actress or a performer or a fashion model. And you see that Roy really becomes Halston with his accent.
Yes, it's his whole persona.
Yeah.
I mean, a boy from Des Moines and raised in Indiana becomes this fashion icon. It kind of reminds me of Jeremy Scott, not really, but kind of Jeremy Scott's from Kansas City.
Yeah.
And he's a big time designer. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, but I love it though. I do like the comparison because again, it's making yourself a little larger than life.
Yeah.
Which again, I feel like a lot of the designers that they were talking about, like Oscar de la Renta during this time, the House of Givenchy, like you're not seeing the actual designers come out as like as a character in the brand because
Right.
again, I think a lot of times like we know Tom Ford, we know Alessandro, I mean we know Karl Lagerfeld, like
Right.
these were iconic personalities that brought us in not only to their house but they were the house.
Right.
So it's
Exactly.
pretty cool to see it. So the first episode is what I call kind of a gentle dance of us getting to know who he is, that he has these really grandiose dreams. He wants to open up like a fashion house, and it's so cool to see that he is opening it up in the the towers, and it's pretty cool to see him like basically bring in potential people who could give him money.
Yeah.
And him being literally balls to the wall. Like, I need $1 million investor.
He's so strategic too. I also love the idea. I mean, he started as a hat designer.
Yes.
And he became like a name because Jackie Kennedy wore one of his hats. And I love that he could have just stuck with hats, but he had bigger ideas and he wanted to dress a woman head to toe, even undergarments. And I think that is so cool. And that's how you get the money, because you bring these women in here and you dress them everything. You need everything. I want to don you and Halston. And I think that is a cool concept and I love it.
Yeah. It was really the first time that there was this kind of grandiose, like, you need to wear from head to toe, even your lingerie is Halston. He
Right.
wanted to really paint literally the whole room in Halston, which again, most designers were very specific. There were
Yes.
milliners for hats, there were people for shoes, there were people for gowns, there were people for suiting, and he really had this all-encompassing view. So as the episode goes on, you really see that he needs money for his fashion house. The Olympic Towers, he has this grandiose idea of what he wants for it. You see him outfitting the walls in very ornate patterns and
Yes.
horns.
Again, I love this idea, this big picture idea. It's the vibe. He's creating like a lifestyle surrounding Halston, and I think
100%.
Cool.
And the actual building he had it in, a lot of people turned their nose up, like it wasn't, like, I don't know if that's special. He's like, don't worry, I'm going to make it freaking fabulous.
It's part of the plan.
Totally. So then he has an investor, and she's, what was her name again? She was, I'm trying to think, we both went, let me look her up. Both of us, when we watched the documentary, Eleanor Lambert.
Yes, Eleanor. She was the first. Okay.
She was like his fashion publicist / marketing person.
Okay.
And it's funny because in the actual documentary we watched, she wasn't a key figure in it. But in this, she really is kind of the little, I don't know, the little bee in his bonnet that's always kind of like telling him what he should be doing and what he shouldn't be doing. And she also is somebody who helps bring more investors in. And then she, in the second episode, is like, let's create a big name for yourself. There's this massive show in Versailles, which is the massive palace in France that Marie Antoinette made famous. And there were 5 designers, and he is asked to attend. And they kind of treat him like crap.
They gave him like the worst studio and showroom and workspace, and he wanted to go last, but Oscar de la Renta only would do it if he was last. So yeah.
And he throws a tantrum to ensure that he goes last, pretty much. And then they force him to like make some designs off the cuff, which for us, we were like blown away by.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
Because I mean, he cuts on the bias. Most of his designs during that time were a 1-seam dress, which I mean, that's insane. It's literally,
it's like draping.
That's it. It's so cool.
Taking a piece of fabric, and that's what draping is, taking a piece of fabric and literally placing it on a body, sticking a pen in it, or sewing like a couple of whatever they're called, sews.
Yeah. I know, little stitches right there. Yeah,
yes.
stitches there.
And then that's it.
It's so,
even the gown that the most what was her name?
Elsa Peretti.
Elsa. Yeah. He puts her in this blue, or purple sequin gown, and it kind of goes up through the middle of her
boobs, or cleavage lines.
And there's nothing covering it. She's like, what am I gonna wear? And he gives her this, like, the fan, and she places it over her, and he's like, you're finished. I'm like, okay, that's kind of fabulous. I like it.
It's so fabulous and so sexy and so daring, and it just gives it, again, that initial, like, I mean, there really wasn't very many topless models back then. Like now we have like Jean-Paul Gaultier, who, you know, loves to show the nip. And we are free the nip right now, almost everything high. I'm in a gauze top. But it's crazy to see how he had these ideas that were so inventive. And the actual show was very minimalistic because, again, he was under time constraints.
Money.
And he had a friend of his who literally painted a beautiful abstract Eiffel Tower. And then he had Liza create this amazing dance routine and these gorgeous models who like to move like dancers.
Yeah, I loved that. Okay, I feel like to be a great model, you do have to be able to move your body like that, because if you're standing and they're taking photos of you, to be able to know your body and move it is essential. But I loved that he had 12 African American models walking in his show, which was
unheard of.
They only had one in the other shows. Loved that part. Their dresses were insane. The colors, the sequins, it was just screamed fabulous. Also the variety.
Oh, the variety was insane.
Kind of created little mini
beignets.
Scenes.
It was like little beignets of stuff. And I loved seeing that in the movie, they really held true to what the show was like. When I look at Ewan McGregor as a choice for Halston, at first I was a little bit like, he's fabulous. He has the cadence of Halston. He really, when he puts the tanner on and like starts to do his hair, starts to wear the black and the sunglasses, he really embodies that spirit. It's almost a little campy. And this is the one thing I have to say about Ryan Murphy is that in some ways, I think he gets a little over the top with a lot of his productions and things that he puts together. But with this, it really works because Halston is so, chic and over the top and grand grandiose, and like Liza Minnelli. I mean, she's the queen of stage show and Broadway and dance and theater. So it works. It really does. I'm excited to see what more is going to go on in this.
too.
We're the episode 1 was a great introduction. Episode 2 really shows now where the bigger company, it was Norton Simons, who was with Max Factor, was this company that started to pursue him and wanted to basically buy the namesake of Halston to bring it into department stores. This story is definitely going to develop in this documentary, but at this point in the episode 2, we're really seeing Halston feel like he's got to prove himself as an American designer. He feels like he's now finally getting the credit he deserves at this Versailles show. And in the beginning, you can see that there is this insecurity of him being this boy from Des Moines in the big city of New York. So I'm excited to see what fleshes out. We also have Victor Hugo, who is going to be, I'm assuming, a bigger character in the next 3 episodes. He's just touched in it in this. And the other thing that's kind of a fade out is Edward. I mean, like,
I don't really know where he went.
He kind of like disappeared, which I hope they bring him back, because in the real story of his life, Edward was a VP for him at Halston. He actually dressed his windows. And the story is that Victor Hugo is kind of brought in, and he took over Edward, who's Ed Winston, like literally within a day. And he redoes his window, and all of a sudden it's like he's Halston's new lover as well.
So I think Ed's gone because we already have Victor. He's already been in. I think that that was an intentional just kind of fade away.
Wash over. It'll be interesting because there's so many amazing details of his life. And as we go into the second series of this, which will be episode 3 and 4, it'll be interesting to see what the details are as they unveil themselves. Right now, I don't feel like we have a lot of fleshing out. We have a lot of grandiose story, but I really want to dig a little bit deeper into the characters like Elsa Peretti, and I want to see what happens with Norton Simon. Bill Pullman is kind of the main person that's being represented. I think he plays, I'm going to have to look what Bill Pullman plays in this. He's touching into it, but he plays David Mahoney, that's it, who's one of the heads there. So we'll see where it goes. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this develops.
Me too.
And I just want to get glam.
Me too.
Yeah,
I love it. I love the fashion.
Yes.
Give me all the fashion.
It's so good. Thank you for joining us for this first little touch base review of Halston on Netflix. And we'll see you on the other side.